Hello everyone, welcome to the Ancient World channel. Have you ever wondered why dinosaurs are called dinosaurs? Why do humans know so much about a species that lived tens of millions of years ago? Why did dinosaurs go extinct? Did dinosaurs really go extinct? This video might tell you a completely different truth about dinosaurs. It's more mysterious than we imagine. Today, let's unravel all the mysteries of the most enigmatic creatures in the universe, dinosaurs. 66 million years ago, an asteroid with a diameter of 15 kilometers unexpectedly entered
Earth's gravitational field. Under the influence of gravity, the asteroid's speed gradually increased
to a maximum of 72,000 kilometers per hour. This speed is 3 times faster than
the fastest aircraft today. With such incredible size and speed, it easily pierced and
tore through Earth's atmosphere. After entering the atmosphere, it began to burn fiercely.
The temperature reached 35,000 degrees Celsius, and this light was 1,000,000 times brighter
than the light on the sun's surface. It only took 5 seconds for it to pass through
the atmosphere and impact Earth at an angle of about 30 degrees. At this moment, the power released
was approximately 100,000 megatons of TNT, equivalent to the power of 1 billion atomic bombs in Hiroshima.
Immediately, the sky seemed to be collapsing. Earthquakes, seismic waves from the impact spread globally. Many strong earthquakes up to 11 Richter, and aftershocks lasted for months.
Around the impact zone, super tsunamis formed, with wave heights up to 150 meters.
Additionally, the shock from the impact triggered all volcanoes globally, and fragments ejected
From the impact site were thrown out of the atmosphere within seconds.
Under the effect of gravity, the fragments fell back to Earth like a meteor shower entering Earth. At this time, the largest Aeolus lizard, with a wingspan of 11 to 15 meters, which once dominated
and was the lord of the sky for 100 million years, could not escape the destruction of these meteor showers.
Their wings were pierced by fragments, making them unable to fly, and one by one they fell to the ground. And the dinosaurs living in the highlands were also fleeing for their lives from the sweeping tsunami. Besides tsunamis and volcanoes, there were also dust and toxic gases forming giant clouds with high heat,
taking only 5 minutes to cover the entire Earth, forming a firestorm that incinerated everything.
In its path, even water evaporated instantly. Earth at this time was truly like hell. It is estimated that within just 3 minutes after this impact, 75% of all global life was destroyed. Among them, over 90% of all dinosaur species. In this impact, only a few small dinosaurs, and some animals survived because they hid in high mountain caves. Their only option was to await death. The toxic gas clouds formed after the impact were mainly hydrogen sulfide kenshin.
An estimated 300 to 500 billion tons were formed. They created a covering curtain blocking sunlight
from reaching Earth, causing global temperatures to drop below freezing.
For hundreds of years thereafter,
Sunlight could not penetrate the atmosphere, and many plant species
could not photosynthesize or absorb oxygen. This caused the surviving herbivorous dinosaurs to not get enough food. Alamosaurus, one of the largest dinosaurs of its time, had to eat a ton of leaves a day.
And with such natural conditions, it was obviously impossible to meet its needs.
The death of herbivores led to carnivorous dinosaurs losing their food supply. Therefore, the main cause of dinosaur extinction was insufficient food supply. The food chain was broken. Ultimately, only a few small omnivorous dinosaurs survived, and some of them evolved into today's birds.
The scene I just described is the result of a tireless discovery process by the most renowned scientists,
archaeologists, and biologists, to see how humans discovered dinosaurs. And why did we name them dinosaurs? Let's start from the year 1676. At that time, a professor working at Oxford University named Robert Plot was tasked with researching.
And with such natural conditions, it was obviously impossible to meet its needs.
He believed that to achieve such a shape, these stones must have undergone strong natural forces, giving them a bone-like appearance. In appearance, it seemed to be the lower part of a human or animal thigh bone. Initially, the professor asserted that it was the thigh bone of a giant, because he had found drawings of giants by the Greeks and Romans through ancient works. However, those arguments had too many flaws for people to believe, and this discovery gradually faded into oblivion. 100 years later, Robert's research was used by Professor William Buckland in his scientific treatise. During his research, William built an enormous fossil collection after searching for them in large rock outcrops around the Oxford University area. William found a large lower jaw full of sharp teeth, many vertebrae, some fragments of shoulder and pelvic bones, and a few bones from the hind limbs.
With those parts, William believed they belonged to a modern reptile species. In his research, he named the species Megalosaurus, meaning giant lizard.
William also added that this reptile was up to 12 meters long and weighed more than an elephant. Thanks to Mr. Williams' research, humanity began to have its first ideas about prehistoric life, and this sparked public curiosity. Sometime after Williams' announcement, people gradually paid more attention and dedicated more research to these giant bones.
Not only that, some people began to become dinosaur hunters, specializing in searching for fossilized rock slabs.
Prominent among the first people to search for dinosaurs were Gideon Mantell and his wife, Mary Ann.
In 1822, Gideon, a geologist and paleontologist, was spending time researching fossils in the English countryside with his wife. During a search for fossilized stones, Mary found strange teeth along her usual path. After finding these specimens, she immediately reported them to her husband. During his research, William built an enormous fossil collection after searching for them in large rock outcrops around the Oxford University area. Scientists at the time believed these teeth were too large compared to mammals or fish. After a period of studying these specimens, the results showed that these bones belonged to a large reptile species completely unrelated to the Megalosaurus that Oxford University had described.
After many years of research with geologists and anatomists, Gideon discovered that the teeth he found bore similarities to the teeth of herbivorous iguanas.
However, because the fossilized tooth was 20 times larger than a normal iguana tooth, he asserted that the owner of this fossilized tooth must have been up to 18 meters long. From then on, Gideon believed these fossilized teeth belonged to an entirely new species. Initially, Gideon wanted to name that species Iguanosaurus. But because this name was too closely associated with iguanas, it could easily cause confusion. So, in 1825, with the first two specimens both related to reptiles, we can understand why the general image of these prehistoric creatures is that of giant lizards. Following Gideon Mantell's research, in 1841, the British scientist Richard Owen named these fossils dinosaur, meaning terrible lizard. However, for Vietnamese people, we call them kung long, pate, because the word long sounds more formidable than lizard. But at this point, the question humans need to ask is, why are dinosaurs only ancient relics? Where did they go? According to what humanity understands about history and biology, we have two possible answers to that question.
First, they went extinct.
Earth has undergone many climate changes and habitat shifts, and the evaporation of up to 90% of living creatures is a familiar occurrence on this planet.
The second answer is more complex.
They evolved.
According to what we know, living organisms always have the ability to create variations to adapt to their environment, creating a competitive advantage to preserve their species. Therefore, it is very possible that prehistoric dinosaurs became modern dinosaurs. It's just that they are very different from what we usually imagine. The second answer might be easier to accept. But why do scientists believe that dinosaurs did not survive like other creatures, but instead claim they went extinct? The thing is, we have found many fossils over the past century, which allows us to use modern technology to date them using radioactive isotopes.
When the specimens were measured, archaeologists confirmed that dinosaurs existed for at least 230 million years on this planet.
However, there is a break in history, and this break occurred about 65 million years ago. They confirmed that there are no
That means something happened to dinosaurs around 65 million years ago. That period was also the transition between the Cretaceous and Paleogene periods. So some impact must have changed the climate so drastically that it altered the entire period, and from that, dinosaurs also went extinct. Observing and analyzing the geological strata today, we have a lot of evidence showing that 65 million years ago was a period of great catastrophe, something that took away nearly 80% of life on the entire planet, and dinosaurs. The giant beasts at that time suffered immense impact. Whatever event occurred, it severely impacted the global environment, to the extent that creatures at the bottom of the food chain became the first. All would die first, leading to a decline in food sources for herbivores and other predators. Over time, the decline in food sources also reduced the total number of herbivores, and starvation was inevitable. When the sky refused to brighten for plants to photosynthesize, predators at the top of the food chain also had to suffer, as their prey simply died off. Food sources continued to dwindle until there were no more carcasses to eat, and from then on, predators at the top of the food chain. We have evidence of numerous intact skeletons from 65 million years ago. Even sedimentary traces in the ground indicate, and that coincidence was not random. That terrible event was certainly the cause of dinosaur extinction. However, what was that terrible event? This is when we begin to delve into the debates of scientists in geology, history, geography, and archaeology. The debate revolves around whether they will believe the hypothesis of the darkest day or a terrifying era.
Sigmundsons. In December 2013, a group of scientists led by Professor Brian Gertsch from Lausanne University conducted a geological
place considered to have experienced the largest volcanic eruption in history. Like all other historical eruptions, its power cannot be leading to climate change that had a huge impact on the survival of most flora and fauna on Earth. The eruption could very well be a strong candidate for the title of Dinosaur Destroyer. During the survey, the research team found volcanic rocks with some minerals formed in magma. This helped the team determine the talents.
From that, scientists could predict how the eruption affected the survival of dinosaurs. The results made researchers shiver.
Specifically, at the end of the Cretaceous period, the Deccan Traps spewed toxic gas plumes and massive amounts of lava for millions of years.
Around 66 to 65 million years ago. Although the exact eruption time of this death pit cannot be.
Not only that, the Deccan Traps were also cyclical volcanoes, erupting continuously many times over the next 500 years.
Because the eruption lasted too long, toxic gases released from the volcano heavily polluted the atmosphere. Heavy gases. SO2 is a toxic gas that suffocates all living creatures and accelerates decomposition. It also caused, but it didn't stop there. Sulfuric acid produced from the atmosphere also seeped into the ocean, killing all plankton, and naturally most marine life suffered the same fate. It didn't stop. When we thought the catastrophe was over, things got worse as a large amount of CO2 seeped. Climate was affected, making the living environment harsher. Species already on the brink of extinction now officially had to disappear from the planet's surface. The chain reaction continued for nearly 1 million years, leaving almost no creature able to survive this mass extinction. However, this is just a hypothesis based on clues from a volcano. Perhaps it wasn't the only event. Perhaps the Deccan traps had an accomplice from space, an extraterrestrial Grim Reaper. Somewhere around 65 million years ago, on a beautiful day like any other, a bright star suddenly appeared in the sky. But unexpectedly, it crashed straight into Earth on that fateful day. And the result was exactly as I described at the beginning of the video. But which was the main cause? Perhaps both happened. We can say this was the universe's dirtiest trick on dinosaurs.
Perhaps the asteroid impact triggered the Deccan Traps volcano, or perhaps the Deccan Traps were already active independently before that.
But whatever the cause, both events occurred within the same time frame, 65 million years ago. When dinosaurs had to endure such a series of catastrophes, it's not hard for us to understand why they no longer exist. This raises another question. If all living creatures disappeared from Earth 65 million years ago, then why are we here? Right on this planet?
Perhaps the answer needs to go further. But it's not hard for us to realize that not all dinosaurs went extinct.
Researchers have discovered that today's birds evolved from dinosaurs when they observed their brains growing larger and their shapes changing.
Scientists traced the connection between brain development and skull movement across generations to discover how the lords of lizards transformed into birds.
A research team from a prominent research institution, led by a distinguished professor, found significant changes in the skull roof.
Dr. Aris is also the assistant curator of paleontology and vertebrate zoology at a renowned natural history museum.
He stated, "During the transformation from dinosaur to bird, the skull became very large, and the brain grew bigger."
He said the research team was very surprised because no one had ever suggested that the basic parts of the brain, the forebrain and midbrain.
Although previous studies had shown a general link between the brain and skull, the relationships between specific brain regions and individual elements of the skull roof. Dr. Buhler and colleagues tracked the evolution of brain and skull shape across the entire lineage, from reptiles to birds.
They discovered that most reptile brains and skulls were remarkably similar. The dinosaurs closest to birds.
Professor Buhler added that the research team found a clear link between the frontal bone, parietal bone, and midbrain.
According to them, this connection can be found in all vertebrates with large skulls, and that implies a profound developmental relationship between the brain and the skull roof. This implies that the brain produces molecular signals, guiding the formation of the skeletal framework around it. Although, finally, one of the most important messages here is that this evolution seems much simpler and more elegant than it appears.
Some scholars believe that dinosaurs would chirp like birds, not roar like monsters. Thus,
what are your thoughts? Please leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching the entire video. See you in the next video.